Hello, I am going to do a couple of examples for you guys on solving equations by factoring. We've spent the last couple of days factoring into a binomial factor where we have those parentheses and it's x plus or minus something. So first of all, we can only solve these if they're in one variable. So if we have those ones like I talked about yesterday where they have an x and a y, we have to get rid of one of those. Sometimes a word problem will give you two variables but then tell you to plug something in and you'll be able to get rid of a variable that way. We will see that in the word problem at the bottom. But in order to solve it, it has to be one variable, just an x, just a y, just one letter. So first of all, after we recognize that it is one variable, we only have x's, we have to get the equation equal to 0. This one's nice and easy, it's done for us already, but you have to get everything to one side so that there's only a 0 left on the other side. This is finding, if we were graphing these, which we can graph quadratics, and hopefully we'll get there this year, but we are going to find where they cross the x-axis, which is where y is 0. Okay, so we're trying to find those zeros. Sometimes answers to a quadratic will be called a 0. Alright, so we have to get it set equal to 0. Now we're going to set it, we have to get binomial factors. So b here is -4, c is +3. So just like we've been doing, we need things that add to -4, but they multiply to get 3. So the only things that we can do for 3 are 1 and 3 and 3 and 1. Alright, well these give me 3, 1 times 3, but they don't give me -4. So if I change one of them, that gives me -3. I can't do that. If I change them both, -1 times -3 is 3. -1 plus -3, that's -4. So we like that. So we're going to do x minus 3 and x minus 1. And it's still equal to 0 because we were equal to 0 up there. I'm going to scoot up, maybe that'll help. Okay, and these problems that I am doing are from the worksheet 38, page 38 that you guys are going to do problems from. I'm picking ones that are odds and you're going to do the evens. So these will be exactly like the problems you're going to be asked to do. The next step is take these factors, there are 2 of them, and set them equal to 0. So we'll say, okay, x minus 3 equals 0, and we've done this before if you recall, x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, we're setting each one equal to 0. We're going to solve each one separately. So how do I get x alone? I'm going to add 3. And I get x equals 3. And how do I get x alone here? I've got to add 1. So I get that x equals 1. So this is my answer. It's as simple as that. So factor just like we've been factoring. Set each individual factor equal to 0. Name your answers. Alright, let's take a look at another one. I want to do 7 from this worksheet. So 7 is t squared minus 8 equals -7t. Okay, so the first step, get that equation equal to 0. I am not currently equal to 0. You almost always want to leave this squared positive, so move everything so that this is positive. So how do I move this over here? It's negative, so let's add 7t plus 7t. Alright, so we're going to write this as a polynomial. They need to be in decreasing order. None of these have the same number of t's, so we just write it down. T squared plus 7t minus 8 equals 0 now because that cancels. Okay, we're going to factor, so I'll save myself a little room and name b and c here. So b is 7 and c is -8. So I need to add to 7, and I need factors of -8 to give me 7. So 8 can be given by 1 and 8, 2 and 4. So I'm going to flip-flop those. Because this is negative, I know that one of my terms has to be negative there. Okay, this is not new. We did a lot of practice of this yesterday. So we're going to decide which one of these adds to +7. Take a look a second. So this one's -8 plus 1, that's -7. Which the fact that it's 7 makes me want to look at the other one. -1 plus 8, that will be +7. So those are the two terms that are going to go in my binomial factor. Okay, so we have -1, x minus 1, and we have +8, x plus 8. Alright, we have our binomial factors. Set each factor equal to 0. So x minus 1 equals 0, and x plus 8 equals 0. We're going to solve each of these separately. Nice and easy one-steppers. So this, how to get x alone, add 1. We get x equals 1. And how do we get x alone here? Subtract 8. We get x equals -8. So your answer is that x is 1 and -8. Alright. The next one I want to do is number 9, which is -9. Do that so it looks different. Okay, -9 minus 8x plus x squared equals 0. So we had one like this, I think it was in yesterday's assignment. It's just out of order. We don't like the way that it looks. This is already set equal to 0 and we're happy with that, but let's reorder it so that it looks like a polynomial we like to work with in decreasing order. So my x squared has to go first, then my x term minus 8x, then my 9. Don't forget to keep this negative with it. Minus 9 equals 0. Alright, we've got to come up with our binomial factors. So we need these two. Let's see, b is going to be -8, c is -9. So -9, I need factors of -9 that add to -8. 9, how do we get 9? It's negative, so I'm going to do my flip-flops. I'm going to make it 1 and 9, 3 and 3, and the only other one is 9 and 1. So I have 3 possible choices here. Which grouping gives me -8? Right, this one will be +8. 9 minus 1 is 8. 3 minus 3 is 0. 1 minus 9, there's my -8. So that's going to give me my factors. So x minus 9, x plus 1. I've got my factors. I have to set each factor to 0 and solve. So we get x minus 9 is 0, and x plus 1 is 0. Same way to solve here. We're going to add 9 and get that x equals 9. And how do we get x alone here? +1, so we subtract 1. X equals -1. Those are your answers. I want to do 2 more. Okay, so I'm going to slide down away from our directions here, but I think we probably have them now. I want to do number 13. 13 is x squared. Okay, hopefully. Okay, yeah. So x squared equals 24 minus 10x. So your first step, we need everything on one side. Right now, my x squared is positive. I need to move both these things to the left. So let's move the 10x. It's being subtracted, so we will add it. Now I have x squared plus 10x equals 24. I still have a number over here. I want 0, so I have to subtract 24 and get x squared plus 10x minus 24 equals 0. Alright, everything's on the left and it's set equal to 0, so let's identify b is 10, so I need my terms to add up to 10. C is negative 24. So when I make my factors, I need that to be a negative 24. So I'm going to have to list them all so I have a negative column and a positive column. So 24 is 1 and 24. 2 works, that's 12. 3 works, that's 8. 4 works, that is 6. 5 doesn't work, 6 works. So now they're going to flip-flop back around. So I have 6 and 4. I'll have 8 and 3, 12 and 2, and 24 and 1. 24 is one of those ugly ones that has a bunch. So because it's negative, I know one of these is going to have to be negative. And I need to find the group here now that gives me positive 10. So take a look at it for a minute and decide what that has to be. So positive 10. 24 minus 1, that's 23. 12 minus 2, that's 10. So it's right here. So negative 2 plus 12 will be my binomial factors. We're ready to set them equal to 0 separately. So we get x minus 2 equals 0 and x plus 12 equals 0. We've got to find the solve. We've got to know what makes these true. So add 2 and get that x equals 2. And this is plus 12, so minus 12. And get that x equals negative 12. One thing to notice is we have to solve these. It is not going to be these two numbers that give you your answer. So don't do your factoring, create your binomial factors and think, oh, I know what it is. It's negative 2 and 12. It will be, with these basic ones, the opposite of those. So like if it's positive, it'll be negative. But you need to show me this solving, because in the next section that we get to, it's not always going to be just, oh, it's the opposite. We have to solve it to get that answer. Okay, last example. We're going to do number 17, which is a word problem. It is on the sheet, so you can follow along with me. It says rocket launch. Okay, that's the one that I'm reading. Rocket launch. If a rocket is launched with initial velocity of 1,600 feet per second, when will the rocket be 14,400 feet high? So on these word problems, you have to look before the word problems, because it gives us, let me see if I can show that on here. It actually gives you, nope, it's not going to be pretty. Use the formula h equals vt minus 16t squared to solve each problem. This applies to 16 and 17. So when you get to go and do your problem, you need to use this equation. You're not going to know what to do otherwise. So we're going to start both of these problems by writing that down so we can use it. Okay. So my rocket launch equation is h equals vt minus 16t squared, and they tell me in the problem, let's see, initial velocity equals 1,600 feet per second. And they want to know the height is 14,400 feet. Their question is, what's the time that happens at? So we need to fill things in so that we can solve for t. All right, so height is going to stand for the h. Initial velocity is represented by the v. So we're going to write the equation 14,400 equals initial velocity 1600 t minus 16t squared. Okay, so what have I said? When we solve, we want this term to be positive. Right now it's negative. We're going to move everything over to the left. So plus 16t squared. We're left with 16t squared minus 1600t and this 14,400, we're happy with it. We want it to be right there. Get it solved for 0. Here's the trick. You're going to have to use this same trick in number 16. We have not had anything yet that has a number there. That's the next thing we're going to learn. But what's great about this problem is that everything here is divisible by 16. So we're going to take everything and divide it by 16. Just get rid of it. 16 divided by 16 is going to be t squared. 1600 divided by 16 is 100. 14,400 divided by 16, I'm just doing these on my calculator, is 900. Okay, so this one, and this is why I chose this one because it's such big numbers, is a little bit uglier because we need a number that adds to negative 100 but multiplies to 900. 900. So you got to think about it for a minute. What are some easy... I'm trying to get to 100. I don't want to use 1 or 2. Okay? So we're going to look at 900. What is that maybe by 5? Okay. So, well, let's look at the other thing too. This is positive and this is negative. So that means both of my factors need to be negative. So they're going to be added together. So if I divide by 5, 5 times 180 gives me 900, but when I add, that's negative 185. So we don't want that. I'll start using the negatives so that we're looking at a negative number. All right. So what about, like, I don't know, 8? That doesn't work. 900 divided by 25s. Okay, 25 and 36, but negative 25 and negative 36 is 61. Now I've gone too far. So it's going to be a number between, what did I try before, 5 and 25. Okay, because we're trying to get 100. This was too much. Maybe it's even going to be between 8, because this is too much and this is too little. So I need something between those two numbers. 900 divided by negative 15. 15 and 60, okay, so this is 60 and 15 is 75. Closer. Let's do 9. So 9 is 109, but it's not 100. So let's try 10. This is negative 10 and negative 90. There we go. So we want to use negative 10 and negative 90 because adding negative 10 and negative 90 give me negative 100. Hopefully watching me go through this investigation of finding those factors will help you find your factor trees, your charts here that I want you to make. If you're not finding all of them, go through all the integers up to the number, and hopefully you'll see the answer that you need. But we know it's going to be minus 10 and minus 90. So this will be t minus 10, t minus 90 equals 0. T minus 10 equals 0. T minus 90 equals 0. So I'm going to have to kind of squeeze it in here. Here we'll have t equals 10 and adding 90 gives me t equals 90. So at 10 seconds and 90 seconds, the height will be at 14,400 feet. So actually twice, because what happens with a rocket launch is it gets shot up into the air and then it starts to come back down. So at this point and this point over here, it has the same height twice. Same thing's going to happen with your football problem that you do in 16, but your numbers are going to be a lot smaller. It'll be easier to find these two numbers. All right, good luck. Email me or send me a private message like some of you are if you have any questions. You are going to be doing the evens on worksheet page 38. And remember, I did attach that to Google Classroom. If for some reason you can't find it or you've lost the document, email me and I'll just email you a copy of it. I have a document that you can look at. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.